Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
No.
No.
Just a little closer forward.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, do I need to be closer?
Yes.
Okay. How's that? Better? Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. First of all, thank the Sutter Chamber of Commerce and the Appeal Democrat for hosting this evening's forum. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here and for the voters to hear who we are and what our issues are. As many of you know, I have been the District 5 Supervisor for the past year and a half, having been appointed to take James Gallagher's place when he was elected to the Assembly. I am honored to have Assemblyman Gallagher's endorsement as well. And I have a business, consulting business for over 20 years, and I deal with agriculture, energy, and water issues. Public safety has been my #1 issue in this community, as many of you already know, and some of you have helped me out there in the audience. I served on the Levy District 1 Board of Directors. I also served on the State Reclamation Board, so flood control, levee improvements are extremely important to our community as an economic stability and to encourage jobs in the area. I am also a big supporter of law enforcement, and I am endorsed by the Sutter County Sheriff, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, as well as the Sutter County Professional Firefighters Association. I am a 40-year resident, and I live out on O'Banion Road. I know the district very, very well. And with that, I'd like to introduce my daughter, Jill, and my 2 grandchildren, Eva and Reed. Actually, my grandchildren have walked with me, and they love learning about campaigning. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Mat Conant, please take up to 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Appeal Democrat for sponsoring this event. My name is Mat Conant, and I'm a candidate for District 5 Supervisor. My wife standing in the back is Lorraine. She's a special ed teacher for 32 years at LeVake. We've been married for 25 years, and we have 2 sons. My oldest son, Matthew, is 24 years old, and he farms with me, and he is now the 4th generation farming in Sutter County. I'm a my son, Greg, my second son, is a student at Sonoma State, and I am a 3rd generation farmer in Sutter County, a 5th generation in California. I am a graduate from East Nicholas High School, at Yuba College with an AS, a BS from Cal Poly, and a graduate of the Class 31 of the California Ag Leadership Program. I am endorsed by the Yuba Sutter Farm Bureau Board, the former Congressman Wally Herger, Sheriff Art Brandwood, and former Supervisor Dick Aiken. I support the hiring of more sheriff officers, auditors, to keep our books and make sure that our county taxes are spent correctly. I want to pay down the unfunded pension liability, and I'm running for the Board of Supervisors because I believe that I can make Sutter County a better place for all the citizens in Sutter County to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're going to go to the 1st District and have our first opening statement from Grace Espindola.
Thank you for pronouncing my last name correctly. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. I came to America at the age of 2 with my mother, legally. My father arrived first because he had a dream for a better life. My parents were farm workers. My parents taught me about courage and determination, and I'm eternally grateful for my parents' hard work and dedication. It's which I have a better life. It's why I've been able to go to college. It's why I am part of the community. When I was 12, I worked alongside my parents in the farm labor. I have a lot of dirt in my nails here in Sutter County. I know the value of work. I know the value of money. I know the struggles of our hardworking families. I work for Sutter County Office of Education, and I've been there for more than 22 years. The best part of my job is I love writing grants. I'm proud because I've been able to implement more than $7 million of grants in Sutter County, which has enriched our community. If you honor me with your vote, I will always respond to your needs. I will listen to you, and I won't forget that I'm at your service. We are a promise for a better tomorrow, and I hope to earn your trust and your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ron Sullenger, you have up to 1.5 minutes.
Thank you all for coming. I'm sure that there are probably more interesting things to do than to watch a group of folks that are vying for office, but that's the local news of the day. So I'm your Sutter County elected supervisor. I am a one-term supervisor in District 1. I'm a retired peach farmer, businessman. I've had a couple of businesses locally that I started, ran successfully for almost 30 years, and have provided jobs in the community and sold both of those businesses to former employees. And so when I ran for the board, I ran because I thought I had something to add from a business standpoint, and I think that therein lies the key. As I began looking at Sutter County, once inside, there were an awful lot of leaks in the canoe, in the boat, so to speak. A lot of wood that needed to be thinned out of the wood pile. And basically my approach, my campaign approach was this. I come from the group of guys pulling the wagon. And if you're riding in the wagon and you belong there, great. But if you don't belong there for whatever reason, you're probably not going to like me. And in my 3.5 years that I've been on the board, there have been a substantial number of thinnings of the wood pile of people that are no longer here, that didn't belong here, that were either clipping coupons, they should have retired previously, and I think talk about it like that game. No.
What does that signify?
In any event, there are a whole different group of folks that are involved in Sutter County's management now, and we still need management help, and we're looking for a CAO. And accordingly, I'm in the process of doing that, and work to be done still. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After we start with our first question, we'll start with Mat Conant. And Steve, why don't you go give the first question? And you'll have up to 1 minute.
Pretty simple question. In your opinion, what are the 2 biggest problems in your district? What will you do to solve the problems?
We have a lot of levee problems in the South Sutter County. The lower end of even the district in the Yuba City area is not as protected as it could be. We haven't done the levees on the bypass yet at all. That area can still flood in the southern end of the district. The levees are just not adequate. That's one issue. I think rural crime in District 5 is also a huge problem, and we need to hire more sheriff deputies and put more patrols on for that. The levy thing is a very complicated, very time-consuming, very expensive project to get the levees up to standard. I don't have a solution for that. I don't think anybody really does, because if you say you do, I would like to figure out how we're going to fund it. So thank you.
Okay, our next answer is from Grace Espindola.
You're repeating the question?
Oh, do you want the question?
Do we all get the same question?
I was just wondering.
Grace, in your opinion, what are the 2 biggest problems in your district? What will you do to solve the problems?
The community has said to me, in talking amongst ourselves, that crime is a huge issue. And in this, it's very difficult when we are not funding our sheriff department to provide the needed patrolling, training, and talent. So number 1 is the first thing is public safety and reducing crime. There has been an influx of gang crimes, if you haven't noticed in the newspaper or seen on TV. That has been an increase. Also, ag theft has been an issue. The second issue is that we do not have appropriate emergency services in certain areas of our communities, or our fire services are needing major repairs. So those are 2 major issues that our community has talked about, and I'm here to solve and help with among all of us together working in solution-minded ways.
Ron Sullenger.
I think that there are a number of problems. First of all, the economic development is certainly an issue that we must work toward, trying to better educate the workforce that we have, and as well provide ag-related businesses that provide those jobs. We have a built-in workforce that there's no place for these young folks to go. So I've been one of the original founding members of the board that began something called Sutter Forward. And Sutter Forward is an opportunity for business development between Yuba City and Live Oak, trying to encourage businesses to come into our area that provide, and think of the guy that you see on TV with the pillow business. He doesn't require a lot of services. The other problem that we have is always one of budgeting. Budgeting, you know, we funded 2 more sheriff's deputies this year, and it was a struggle because there are a lot of places that need financial help. It's not just the sheriff department. Maybe management would help, you know. So there are a number of issues. Those are the 2 that I'm primarily concerned with as we speak.
Harper?
Okay, thank you. 2 issues. First of all, levee improvements, flood control, and I actually have been working on that for a number of years, and we have progressed. We have a $300 million project where we are improving the Feather River, and also there are small community grants that are going to be submitted to very small communities such as Tudor and Nicholas, Pleasant Grove, and those areas, and the criteria is being submitted, and the deadline for that criteria is November 2nd. So here in the urban area, we are addressing our flood control issues, and we have through a benefit assessment for some time. So I am proud of that and to be a part of that. Also, I think, you know, the criminal aspect in my district having to do with illegal marijuana grows is clearly apparent, and I believe, how many seconds did I didn't look at that.
4.
Okay, 4 seconds. Anyway, and hopefully we'll have another question there because I can get to that as well. But I think that I took the leadership in getting the marijuana ordinance strengthened so that we would eliminate those illegal outdoor grows in the Nicholas area and further south in the rice country in the ag area.
Okay, let's go to Grace Espindola for our next question to answer first. Let's talk about homelessness. Marysville and Yuba County are dealing with homelessness like never before. How about in Sutter County? Are there efforts to take actions in tandem with Yuba County? And what's the short and long-term solutions?
Well, this happens to be one of my favorite areas because I am one of the founders that, along with a group of 5 other community members, started the Homeless Consortium. So it's one of those proud moments to say this. But it's a community that put this together. The short end of it is that we have existing working relationships with the Yuba County Board of Supervisors and Marysville Council as well, and with additional businesses, and we're in a coalition. And we are working on this, not necessarily just on a local level here within Sutter County. There has been some plans and development, and a plan that could be utilized regionally. And I have to say the Sutter County Board of Supervisors at this point was the last one to join the group. We started this almost 2 years ago, but we're heading in the right direction. And we're heading to, that's why we have 14 Forward. That's why we have some transitional homes. We have Hands of Hope. There's there's so much in our community that we're able to, instead of just kicking them out, find good ways to mainstream them back into our community. Thank you.
Okay, Ron Sullenger?
Sutter County is addressing the homeless problem as rapidly as we possibly can. We've hired a consultant who in turn is trying to keep us up to speed as to what to do best. We believe that the proverbial carrot and the stick arrangement is an approach that Sutter County needs to take, because as Marysville got rid of a lot of the homeless folks on their side, our population increased substantially. And so along the riverbank, there are a lot of problems. Fortunately, in District 1, we're blessed we do not have that problem that's bothering us like Ms. LeVake and Supervisor Flores and others have. So we are doing what we can do. We're trying to provide as best we can an avenue of here's a helping hand up. If you're willing to accept that, great. If you're not, then we have to worry about trying another approach. But we are working feverishly on trying to provide some assistance for those folks that really want to get rid of their situation.
Barbara LeVake.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you, Grace, for your efforts We appreciate that. And is a big problem in Supervisor Flores' district, in my district as well. And I will say that we are becoming much more proactive. We've actually been working on it for probably a good 8 months or almost a year. And so we are moving forward to try to transition those folks, and there are some families in the river bottom, into transitional housing. And I think that's absolutely key that we do that. And also to make sure that they know the services that we can provide by the county, from the county, so that we can help them. And there are some children. So we are working very proactively, and as Supervisor Sullenger mentioned, we have a consultant we brought on board, and we're working with the larger consortium. So I'm positive that we'll be able to make some inroads here in the next 10 months, year. Thank you.
And Mat Conant.
Yes, the homeless problem is a significant problem in Sutter County, especially in District 5. We, as Barbara said and Ron Sullenger said, that there was a meeting yesterday, and the consultant gave a report on the homeless issue. It seems like we're moving forward, and I think the faith-based organizations can do a significant amount of good to help that as well, and they have been in the past. We have supported some of these faith-based organizations as well, and I believe that the homeless issue, we're getting a handle on it. It's still a big issue, but we are making strides forward in this county. And the faith-based organizations will be a big help for that as well. Thank you.
Steve, you have the next question, and I believe Ron Sullenger will be the next one to answer.
Water is the main thing here in many ways. What's your assessment of the infrastructure and how safe Sutter County residents are from the flooding that's happening fast? And secondly, how secure is Sutter County's water supplies for agriculture and municipal purposes?
I believe that the levee situation is under control as best it can be. We're trying to provide a 200-year levee for sure everywhere that we can. And without the levee certification, quite frankly, our economic growth will be negligible. Those levees have to be certified, and as far as I'm concerned, we have taken the steps necessary, aside from the Indian artifacts and a few other hurdles that we have to overcome. For the most part, I've put the levee issue to bed. Water issue is another thing that happens to be one of my concerns. There are a lot of farmers in our district that have wells, and we're not out of the drought yet. It may seem, because we had a little water last winter, that we are, but that's still an issue that we have to address. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to make darn sure that what water we have, we don't necessarily deplete. We have to make sure that the aquifers are being filled up.
Barbara LeVake.
Okay. First of all, I think I pretty much addressed the levee issue. I will simply add as well that the Sutter bypass is a state responsibility, and Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency and myself have been in meetings with the state, and we need to get them on board to help fund the much needed improvements on that site. I was on the committee for the Sites Reservoir when they passed the bond measure, and I'm a strong supporter of the Sites Reservoir. The good thing is that we're in the north. The bad thing is the south wants our water. So I think that we really need to move forward in developing our infrastructure, and I know that Assemblyman Gallagher had a bill that was signed by the governor, which will help expedite that, and we're fortunate to have leaders like him and others from like Northern California Water Association promoting Sites Reservoir. Thank you.
Mat Conant.
Yes, we're very fortunate in Sutter County to have a very good water supply. Not only would we have good districts that are supplying surface water, but we also have districts which are conjunctive use districts, meaning they use surface and subsurface water to supply the crops. I'm a member of South Sutter Water District Board, have been for 12 years. We have a very good panel. We have excellent data on the groundwater aquifer as well as our surface water. And we're very fortunate to have good quality standard of water in Sutter County and in general. There are areas which have slight problems, but those problems can be overcome. The levies is another issue. They have been improved greatly, but they're still not perfect, and we need to deal with the bypass as well as continue the improvements. But don't forget, south of Berry Road, those areas could flood if there was an event. Thank you.
And Grace Espindola.
Well, we need water. Water is how we survive and how we live. And with this, as we move forward, I'm going to continue to be a strong advocate for Sites Reservoir. And the good news is that I was speaking with Congressman Garamendi before today, and the federal regulations are moving forward on the Sites Reservoir. So hopefully, this dream that we've had for over 25 years, I believe, will be coming an actual situation that will be breaking ground hopefully in about a year or more. And I will continue to be a strong supporter in building that. Along with that, it's also Congressman LaMoffa that helped with that specific regulation. The levies, obviously having the communication with these two congressmen, I'll be able to find information and advocate for us when there are concerns with those two particular issues. Our levies are progressing on a good progressing plan. Our water, we need to store more of it. We need to understand the underground rules to it, and we need to be more mindful on how we use it for everyone.
Okay, our next question will start with Barbara LeVake. And medical marijuana is once again on the ballot in addition to Proposition 64, which would legalize recreational marijuana. What is your stance on medical marijuana, and what is your stance on recreational marijuana? And how will Sutter County deal with the issues if these proposals do pass?
Thank you, Bob. It's my understanding on the recreational marijuana initiative that's before the voters of California is that local government will still have control as to local land use. There's no question in most people's mind where I am on this issue because I initiated strengthening the marijuana ordinance in this county as a result of, let's see, I think I might have been on the board 3 months when many of my constituents down in Nicholas contacted me about the 600 plant illegal outdoor grow that was proposed. And so we did strengthen the ordinance. We still allow medicinal marijuana in enclosed facilities with certain requirements that the county has. And so whether or not, regardless of what happens November 8th, it is my understanding local governments still have local control.
Mat Conant.
Yes, it is the way it's written right now on the ballot. The local government will still have control. We have come a long ways. We basically adopted a very similar system to what Yuba County did. And it's worked well in Yuba County, and it's starting to work well in Sutter County for the legal marijuana grow of medicinal. You have to be licensed. You have to go get the permit from the county. You have to grow it indoors in a facility no more than 80 square feet. That proposal's worked very well. We need to work on code enforcement officers and keep code enforcement officers working through the process to get these illegal outdoor grows brought into compliance, which would be taking them out and putting in people to grow marijuana if they want to grow for medicinal purposes indoor in these 80 square foot areas. This is what needs to happen, and this is where we need to go. Thank you.
Grace Espindola.
In medical terms, there is quite a bit of value. There still needs to be more research of this value. But when we're looking at it in recreational terms, you know, I have worked in education for over 30 years, and I work with students directly high-risk community areas. And I'm concerned about the recreational use of marijuana. And knowing this, sometimes situations that children are placed without having their own ability to decide where they live, and parents are using marijuana in inappropriate ways. But if the recreational marijuana passes in November, then, as your supervisor, I will follow whatever the voters' will is.
And Ron Sullenger.
My vote for recreational marijuana will be a no vote. I'm not sure that that temptation is an additional temptation that our people need these days. As far as the medicinal marijuana, My vote is on the record. I voted along with the other supervisors to bring a marijuana ordinance, adopt a marijuana ordinance that prohibits the outdoor grows. However, medicinally, you still have a provision in there that if you really need medicinal marijuana, and I understand there are some people that do because of chemotherapy or whatever, there's a way to do that. But I think I'm pretty much on the record as being against recreational marijuana as well as the outdoor grows. And it's all about budgeting and enforcement. Enforcement is another area. It's great to make promises about we're going to do this and we're going to do that. The reality is, who's picking up the tab? And it's easy to make those promises, but when it comes down to picking up the tab, that's a reality that we all have to face, and it's not always everything you want that we get.
Okay, our next question is going to be delivered by Steve, and it's going to be for Mat Conant.
In recent months, there have been several shootings in Yuba Sutter. There's a perception that crime in the Yuba Sutter area in general has been on the rise, and there's specifically concern over gang activity. What's your plan to combat violent crime? Also, area residents are concerned about property crimes, vandalism, thefts, burglaries. What needs to be done about that?
Okay, I believe, yes, there is a lot more gang activities. There's an article today in the Appeal Democrat about the Hells Angels trying to start up their own little gang here. Well, I guess they already got one going, but and they just arrested one of the guys that was involved in the shooting, and he had a motorcycle shop here in town, and he also had a motorcycle shop in the Reno area, I believe, at Carson City. There's obviously more gang activity and motorcycle gang activity in Sutter County than used to be. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think we have to have tougher enforcement. We have to have more sheriff's officers, more police officers on the street to try to combat this crime. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to hire more sheriff deputies. We need to pay them better. We need to have better training for them. That's what we need in Sutter County. Thank you.
Grace?
When I began my career here in Sutter County, that's the reason I was hired for. Gang intervention programs. Here we are 22 years later, and the issue continues to live in our community and increasing. And I believe that that's why the Sutter Deputy Sheriff's Association endorsed me, because they've seen the kind of work that I've been able to work with others in community mobilizing. I developed a gang task force, along with the police department, the sheriffs, community members, and agencies. And in that, we were able to reduce a lot of gang crime in Sutter County. Originally, I began at Live Oak Middle School. That was my first site that I started. And to see that we're continuing to have this issue in our community, it disheartens me. But we can find solutions. We can find federal grants, we can find foundations, we can also put some of our own general funds and continue to support our deputies for community policing and for community engagement, and how to report some of these crimes if you feel retaliation. We're going to develop an app to help you with that.
Ron?
I think that it's fair to say that not just Sutter County is blessed with additional gang problems. All counties, I think, are being faced with those issues these days. There's never enough money for law enforcement. Who could possibly be against our safety? I worry every day, and I live in the country. I live in rural Live Oak. And I say, what's the response time? If someone's breaking into my home and I call the sheriff, what's the response time? So I'm very cognizant of the fact that we need to continue to put emphasis on our sheriff's department so that we have adequate time. Same with our fire people. I'd like to have someone say, your call will be answered in the order it was received, and you say my house is on fire. So in any event, we're very cognizant of those. And again, it boils down to, it would be nice to be able to, for all of us to drive a new Cadillac, but the reality is we have to prioritize what funding we have. And if you're pulling the wagon, you become very cognizant of that. Not everybody gets everything they want, but it's nice to make promises. And Barbara?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm the only District 5 candidate who's dedicated herself to prioritizing funding for law enforcement, and I have a proven record of that. in supporting funding and adding more deputies on the street, which is why I too enjoy the endorsement of the Deputy Sheriff's Association and the sheriff, as I indicated before, and 2 former sheriffs. You know, well, of course, the Appeal Democrat knows this better than I do, but they just did an informal survey, and something like 90% of the people said that there was more crime, it was worse or much worse now. And I actually had pulled some headlines from the Appeal Democrat, and I have to tell you, it's every day we pick up the paper, and I've lived here 42 years, and it is getting worse. And an example, guns, drugs, $130,000 seized in Yuba City. And a lot of it having to do with marijuana and other drugs. And let me just say that what happens from a safety standpoint has an impact on our economy, and I think that's extremely important to remember. Sorry.
And our next question is for Grace. Hopefully you're familiar with the universal design principles for housing. Do you have any plans to ensure that there will be adequate, affordable, and accessible housing to people with disabilities and seniors so they can independently age in place? As a member of the Board of Supervisors, would you support the development of a universal design ordinance?
As your supervisor, yes, of course, that is a community that is aging and growing. We need to find ways to provide support to them. And that would be something that I would be willing to definitely support and help with.
Ron?
I think that obviously our population is aging. I think there's a statistic out there that says there are 10,000 people every day turning 65. We need to certainly consider, and I'm not sure that a universal code is necessary. I think that perhaps as we work within the state building codes and our own building departments, we should be able to find ways of enticing the builders to develop low-income and or developmentally disabled housing. It's very difficult to do that because most of them are in it for a profit, and there's just not the money there these days. So it's difficult to entice the builders to consider that. Again, that's long-term solutions that we work on every day and try to figure out a better way to encourage that kind of growth, because we do have an aging population. And I can't say that enough about our support for the aged as well as the developmentally disabled folk.
And Barbara?
Yes, I think how I would approach this initially would be to bring together the folks who would be impacted. And that would be the builders, as well as the realtors, the developmentally disabled, and the senior folks, and look to them to help us provide what we would need in that type of an ordinance, because I think it's important to hear from them.
Matt?
I don't know if I'd like a one-size-fits-all program, but I do think that it would be beneficial to have the people age in place and have housing that was suitable for that. But I don't like the idea of big government coming in and saying, this is what you will build. I think we need to try to do it in a friendlier, more soft-spoken way, especially for the county level. I think the city is maybe a different issue, that maybe they want to have specific areas that have that kind of development occurring. We won't have that in the county areas. And we just can't do that on a county level to have an exact one-size-fits-all program, because that wouldn't work for everybody.
Okay, our next question goes to Ron. I think you have a question from the audience.
Do you favor the annexation of the so-called keyhole area? If so, how do you feel about imposing a $59 million pension debt on those residents?
You know, that's kind of a catch-22. There are a number of people that live in that particular keyhole area that don't particularly want to be annexed into the situation. However, our LAFCO committee, Local Agency Formation Committee, apparently felt the need to bring it in. The city has been using the Sutter County Sheriff for crime control patrols. I think that you could argue either side of that, and as far as I'm concerned, the residents say we would prefer not to be annexed. It's a tough situation. For the overall good, the people in the city believe that it's time to bring that keyhole into the city. They will benefit from certain services, and I know there are a number of people that really don't want that to happen. I'm only hoping that in the long run it will turn out not to be as difficult a problem as they perceive at the present time, even though I understand their concerns not wanting to be annexed in.
Barbara?
Yes, this encompasses a part of my district, and since I've walked my district a lot, I've heard pros and cons from folks when I've gone to the door. There are folks who are adamantly opposed to annexation, and there are folks who are very supportive of annexation. One of the things that I think, and then there's the middle, where they're a little bit ambivalent. They're not sure what to think, for or against. And I think what the city needs to do is a little better job of getting out and educating these folks on the annexation, what it's all about, so that they would be able to have a better and more informed decision. And obviously, if there's enough protests, this is going to be going to the vote of the folks in that area.
Matt?
Yes, I have real mixed feelings for this annexation issue. Many of the people in that, when I've been walking the district, I haven't found almost nobody supportive. And I think eventually it will have to come to fruition, because otherwise it will become an island of not in a city. But because there will be development in the south of Yuba City and the south end of the county. I mean, that south part of the city. I mean, it's not in the city now, but it will be in the city eventually, I think. And that would have to be an island. But I do think it needs to go to the vote of the people. I think people need to determine their own fate. And if the city can sell it to them, great. I think that would be what needs to occur. But I don't think that the city has gone enough out to give them the positive benefits of annexation into the city. Thank you.
Bruce?
I would uphold what the voters decide. That's it. You decide, I'm your representative, we work together on these issues.
Okay, our next question, also from the audience, we'll start with Barbara. For several years, the idea, and more than several, of a combined police dispatch center for Yuba City, Marysville, Yuba County, and Sutter County has been discussed. Would you support such an idea?
Yes, it has been discussed. Actually, I remember it about 20, 25 years ago, and since then it doesn't sound like anything has moved forward. You know, I'd like to look at all the criteria on both sides. It seems to me that in an emergency situation where we have to evacuate either side of the river, that we should really be communicating and coordinating our efforts. So I would like to actually take a look at that. That's not something that has come up in the last year and a half since I've been on the board. But I think that there are situations that we really need to coordinate our emergency efforts. Thank you.
I think it would be a good idea, because I think there'd be significant cost savings to both counties and both cities if we had a combined dispatch center. But I don't know how the sheriff's department feel in both areas, and the city police departments feel in both areas. They would obviously have to buy off on this kind of idea, but I do think a combined communication center would provide a lot in an emergency major situation where we had maybe a flood or a major fire in the Buttes or something like that. You'd be able to get much more support from local departments to they'd be right on call, because they'd all know what was going on. And so I think a combined dispatch center would be a really good idea. But like I said, all the departments have to buy off on it.
Great.
Thank you.
As a supervisor, thinking about the sheriff's department and the police department. So we have two different municipalities and rules. So the sheriff is elected, so he oversees the dispatch for the sheriff's department. The police, the Yuba City Police Chief, he oversees along with the city council. So there needs to be a discussion between all those parties for anything to be done or even considered. I have had the opportunity to tour the dispatch center at the Sheriff's Department. It's a great facility. You should take a look at it. It's amazing, amazing the technology that is utilized. And then we have the CHP central calling system. So how do we integrate this? This is an interoperability of integrating agencies, communications, and as an emergency management for the county and for the schools, I'm very familiar with the communication systems, and it's really important that we have something that we can work together, but it's a discussion that needs to happen in a group, not just as one.
Ron?
This is not a new subject, folks. This has been kicked around for a number of years. Again, it gets back to who's going to be chief of the tribe. I think we have a former sheriff sitting in the audience tonight, and he will agree that everything goes along well until you decide who's going to be chief of the tribe. And the centralized dispatch is a phenomenal idea. It would be a money saver in all of our opinions. However, getting the cooperation as to who's going to actually be the top dog is the primary issue. So until we're able to resolve that, and until we're able to get everyone on the same page, again, it's an easier thing said than done. And no one wants to be number two. Everybody wants to be number one that's involved in making this decision. But in time, the savings involved outweigh the individual special interest of, I want to be boss.
Okay, time for another question. Steve, you'll be asking the question of Matt.
We live in a fairly rural part of California, and agriculture is one of the primary building blocks of our local economy. You all will be representing farm interests, but also constituents, probably most of them, who have little to do with farming. How do you handle potential conflicts between rural and urban interests?
Okay, agriculture in Sutter County is a $3 billion return to the local economy each and every year. That's a huge number. It's the single largest employer, single largest payer into the whole system to keep Sutter County rolling, including Yuba City. Think of all the jobs created by that. And I think a lot of people in Yuba City understand the basics of agriculture, but I'm not sure they understand all the idiosyncrasies of how to preserve and protect ag land and its resources, water, land, how to build in a FEMA structure area. How do you get past, get through FEMA to build a wall color in a floodplain? How do you do that for a prune dryer or a rice dryer? These are all issues that are critical to ag, to be competitive in our industry as time goes on. We cannot be out in the field only where we have just fields and no infrastructure to support those fields. Thank you.
Grace?
As a supervisor, that is the fundamental piece, is that to equally represent all your constituents. To understand that District 1 covers Live Oak. It also covers North Yuba City. And there is quite a difference between one part of our community to another part of our community. And then our country area where we have a lot of our farming community. How do you represent everyone with fairness, with justice, and with concern? And the concern of treating everyone with the same manner. And that is by listening to their issues and representing them in their issues that they are needing. And that's the kind of supervisor I am and want to be for our community, for our farmers, for the person who cleans their home, for the person who owns the gasoline station, and for the new business that wants to move in here.
Ron?
Agriculture represents 88% of the dollars in Sutter County. It would be fair to say 88% agriculture drives the local economy. Without it, Sutter County would be in big, big trouble. For those of you that think this job is easy, most of us have been able to smell the stench that's been in our community for the last week or two because of some planting fertilization that's gone on. When you talk about pleasing both sides of the coin, it's very difficult to go to the people that live in the city limits of Live Oak and or Yuba City and say, well, now look, 88% of our bucks come from agriculture. Put up with it, you have to tolerate that smell. So there's a give and take on both sides, and I think most people understand that. It can't all be one way, but in all honesty, agriculture drives the local economy, and we have to put an emphasis and try to make those folks that live in the city understand that we will do everything we can to lighten the load for them, as well as, at the same time, paying close attention to our agricultural interests that we have. Barbara?
Yes, thank you. First of all, let me just say that I come from a fourth-generation farming family in California. My daughter's in agriculture. My son farms down in the San Joaquin Valley. So I understand the importance of agriculture. And in my consulting business, I represent a lot of ag folks. And I'm very involved with regulatory and legislative issues. So I do understand the conflict sometimes between the urban and agricultural areas. In District 5, we have a large urban area just south of Lincoln Road, and then we have the rural area as well. I think that due to the fact that I have these contacts in my business and know the rules and the regulations, I am able to actually have discussions with constituents if they do have a complaint about agriculture, or if agriculture has a complaint regarding something that someone in the urban area is doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Grace, this is going to be the final question. I've been working on these forums since the 1980s, and every time we ask about jobs, and everybody says, I'm going to bring jobs. And
You took my line.
what are we going to do, or can we do anything about getting good-paying jobs in our community? Manufacturing jobs, jobs dealing with Air Force Base, anything that will keep our citizens at home so they're not wandering away after they get their educations.
Listening to the young people in Live Oak that I have, they call themselves Grace Squad. And in that group of students, that is a big concern to them. They want to stay in our community. How do we do that? How do we, as your supervisor, how do we come up with solutions to that? Well, as a supervisor, it's not my primary job to develop jobs, if that is the way to say it. But it is important to know the needs and the interest of making it a business-friendly community, that we cut down some of that red tape. 90% of our employers in Sutter County are small businesses. I have met many as I walk door to door. Some really cool things out there. And if we can find ways to cut down on some of the red tape that is necessary for them, work closely with the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, as those things are happening now, to ensure that our policies are business friendly. I heard from a constituent yesterday. That was his biggest concern. Too much red tape building for the planning development pieces. Let's cut that out so they can come and work and stay here.
Ron?
I think it would be fair to say that we have a large population that's not necessarily an extremely skilled workforce, but if we did have an IBM locally, we wouldn't be able to provide most of the employees, because I think the first responsibility that we have is recognizing where the needs are. We need to be able to say not everyone is going to go to USC or Stanford or Cal or whatever. We need to emphasize the need to provide an opportunity for those youngsters that are coming up to say, hey, look, the air conditioners need to be fixed, so on and so forth. Providing economic opportunity is a responsibility, I believe, of the Board of Supervisors. And accordingly, I think of, and we've all seen the guy on TV that's selling pillows. Have you seen what his place looks like? He doesn't require a whole lot of municipal services. What he's got is a pillow shop, My Pillow, he calls it, and he's making millions in a double garage. So Sutter County needs to take a long look at trying to maybe perhaps pirate away businesses like that. But again, you need to provide businesses and educational opportunities that allow the workforce that's not necessarily trained to take advantage of what jobs are available. And Sutter Forward is trying to do that. It's easier said than done.
Barbara?
Yes, thank you. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have a safe community. I think that means flood control, and that means, safety for our citizens. Secondly, we need the infrastructure, and that is a big problem, and it's always been a problem. Right, Bob? We've been around for a long time. And I think one of the greatest opportunities where we can bring in jobs and increase our tax base is in South Sutter County, just north of the Sacramento County line. There are opportunities there that we as supervisors have already been contacted by some folks, whether it be a UC extension, whatever it may be. And that's simply because of its proximity to the airport and to I-5. It really doesn't take much to realize the importance of that location. So I think that's something we need to look at. Also, as many of you know, Amazon is going right over the county line at the Sac Metro Airport. Wouldn't it have been nice if we had our infrastructure in place and Amazon would have been in Sutter County, where those 700 employees and that tax base would be? Now, that does not mean that 700 employees would be from Sutter County, but I can tell you, walking my district, there are a lot of people who commute that have only lived here 10 or 12 years, who are educated, and they are driving out of the area instead of staying even in Sutter County if it's South Sutter County.
Matt?
Yes, ag is a $3 billion industry in Sutter County, and I think we need to bring in more ag industry, food processors, processing plants, distribution centers, that kind of thing to sell our products throughout the world. Also, we have some great equipment manufacturers here in Yuba City. OMC Manufacturing is one of the largest employers in the state, in Sutter County. And they hire 100 employees, most of them welders, highly skilled, highly paid, that work in that place every single day of the year. Those jobs are what the kind of jobs we need to create in Sutter County. We need to have more ag-based economy. And also, we do need to have a center that has location for bigger industry to come in for bigger jobs in Sutter County. Thank you.
And now it's time to go to our closing statements. We're going to start with Grace. You have up to 1.5 minutes for a closing statement.
It's been a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'd like to take the opportunity to assure the citizens that I am a hands-on working supervisor. To work with Sutter County Sheriff's Department to reduce crime, there are 3 deputies on duty at one time in our county. And to know this, it's not enough. We can do better. Our fire departments are working with equipment that is 25 years old and in despair. While our population has increased significantly and our sheriff fighters the numbers have shrunk, it is time to focus on public safety. We need water. We need to build Sites Reservoir. As I mentioned earlier, Congressman Garland and Congressman LeVake are helping, along with our Assemblyman Gallagher and many others. We need to do this. We need to create a viable plan for smart business growth. And I'm proud to be endorsed by the Sutter Department Sheriff's Association, the Sutter County Fires Association, the Marysville Central Labor and Building Trades Council, and former and now retired Board of Supervisor District 1 Larry Magna, and many, many, many others. We need a thoughtful and careful measured approach. As your supervisor, I will be a trusted leader for Sutter County and District 1, and I humbly ask for your vote and support on November 8th. And thank you, and have a great time after this.
Okay, Ron.
My campaign literature, for the most part, says the independent supervisor who gets things done, beholden to no one. I'm Sutter County raised. My wife of 56 years is sitting in the audience, Susan. I've been a merchant in this community for 30-odd years. I think that I have a feel of the pulse locally. I've been on the board, and I think I've earned a second term. It's very easy to make promises that as you get there, you learn that it's impossible to keep, because the money is really what it all comes down to. You have to prioritize and at the same time be thinking in terms of how can we actually build the future of this county. I think we've worked together to try to provide a mission statement that says this is the way we want to head. I know Supervisor Flores and Supervisor LeVake and others have decided in our infinite wisdom that we really need to take a particular course of action. We're in the process of hiring a new county administrative officer because, quite frankly, some of the people that, when I came on board, there have been a substantial number of changes, and the wood pile has been cleaned out, and some of the dead wood that needed to go has gone. And we're looking forward to having a new way of doing business with Sutter County, being a place that people look forward to coming to, maybe even opening businesses, especially ag-related, as Matt says. So I think I'm a solid individual. I think I deserve a second term, and hopefully come November, that will prevail. Thank you.
Margaret?
Thank you. First of all, let me just thank everyone for coming out this evening, and again to the appeal and to the chamber. I'm doing this because I can get things done. I have a proven record, just even in the last year and a half. Probably more importantly, I'm doing it for my grandchildren and the next generation, because they are going to be raised here. My children went to school here in Sutter County, and my grandchildren are going to go to school here. And I want to see a safer community for them, and I want to see more jobs and more opportunities. Everyone knows who has worked with me, including those of you who worked with passing the benefit assessment for the flood control, that I am a worker, I am a doer, and I represent all aspects of my constituency, whether they're business people, they're commuters, they're farmers, and I have dozens and dozens of farmers who have endorsed me, as well as those who I mentioned previously, and I don't need to repeat those. But I am in this to get things done for this community and to make it a better place for all of us to live. Thank you.
Matt?
Yes, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about Sutter Point. Sutter Point is a project that is a development that is proposed to occur in South County along the 99 corridor at the county line, mostly between Rager Road and both sides of the highway. Most of it, the houses that will occur are on the east side. Most of the industrial proposal is on the west side of the highway. We passed a preliminary vote 12 years ago, and 59% of the population supported it. Today, 41%, and 41 opposed it. Today, 71% of the population opposes this in District 5. This project is a project that is bigger than anything proposed in Northern County. A project that will influence Sutter County for multiple generations to come. If elected, I will make sure that the developers pay their fair share of these development costs. My opponent has taken $49,000 from Sutter Point developers, and I believe that those developers expect a return on their investment. I will make, if elected, will make sure that they do not get that return on investment. And I believe that I want Sutter County to be a better place for all of its citizens to live. Thank you.
May I rebut that?
No rebuttal for the closing statement.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you all for being here. Thanks again. Let's have a round of applause.